$13,570. Cashier's check. No name on the payee line, just a letter. That's how the CIA paid for MKUltra. And one file in tonight's stack ends with a sentence nobody in the agency has ever been able to explain. The archive is open. Tonight we're not reading confessions or interrogation transcripts. We're reading the money, the invoices, the receipts, the check numbers. Because in this program, the paperwork is where people stop lying. November 1960, Subproject 130. A memo to the Chief of Finance asking for a cashier's check for $13,570 drawn on a bank we're not allowed to know, payable to a name that's just a letter now.
Cashier's check in the amount of $13,572 is drawn on a bank, payable to the B.
This is a final invoice. That phrase shows up again and again in these files. It never means final.
3. This is a final invoice. However, since it is anticipated that additional funds will be obligated for this project, the file should not be closed.
Same pattern, different subproject, 3 years earlier. Subproject 22, 2 checks, one from a Philadelphia bank, one from Baltimore, both made payable to something called the Cashier Fund for Medical Research. Read that name. It comes back all night.
Both checks should be made payable to the Cashier Fund for Medical Research, Inc.
That fund's own accounting report survives. Salaries, travel expense, telephone and telegraph. It reads like a small business. It was a CIA front laundering money into human experiments.
Total direct charges 5,286.06. Overhead 10% of direct costs 528.61, 5,814.67. Unexpended balance October 1, 1957, wound 703.57.
One project used 2 front names for the same fund. Subproject 60. The invoice garbles the program name into ECOLOGY, a scramble, a typo, or a clerk having a very long day. Either way, it slipped through.
Subject: ECOLOGY, subproject number 60, invoice number 1, allotment 02502100001.
The invoice on the next page names the fund outright, no redaction. Cashier again, billing the agency directly under the MKUltra name.
For services 57,431.82. This Cashier Fund for Medical Research. It is hereby certified that this is Invoice 5 applying to subproject number 94 of MKUltra. That performance is satisfactory.
Now watch what the money actually bought. Subproject 68, 1957. Dr. D. Ewan Cameron, McGill University, Montreal. The CIA is funding him through a cover organization called the Society for the Investigation of Human Ecology. The chemicals list should stop you cold. That firewall language wasn't a draft suggestion. It's the actual clause they filed and stamped. Page 3 of the original subproject, contact restrictions in absolute terms.
3. No agency staff personnel will contact, visit, or discuss this project with Dr. Cameron or his staff under extreme circumstances.
Notice the date on this continuation memo. Same subproject, same doctor, but now the paperwork names the actual research goal in plain language. Not chemistry this time, signal repetition.
Subproject 68 is being continued as a means to support a research program, the effects upon human behavior of the repetition of verbal signals. The program will be under the direction of Dr. D. Ewan Cameron, Department of Psychiatry at McGill University, Montreal, Canada. The program will be for a period of 1 year, starting 18 March 1959.
2 objectives, laid out cold, refine the driving technique, and map how far the body itself can be pushed. Page 1, Section 2. And the renewal memo spells out exactly what they were chasing. Not just sedation, a method, a repeatable technique for breaking down behavior itself, refined year over year.
Among the chemical agents which we propose to explore with respect to their capacity to produce inactivation are the following, used either singly or in combination: artine, anectine, bulbocap9, curare, LSD-25.
Heteropsychic driving. That's the term of art for playing recorded phrases at a sedated patient on repeat, sometimes for weeks. The goal, in their words,
a search for chemical agents which will break down the ongoing patterns of behavior more rapidly, more transitorily, with less damage to the perceptive and cognitive capacities of the individual than the present physiological agents.
And there's a clause about Cameron himself. His own staff, his own patients, were never told who was paying for it.
1. Dr. Cameron, the principal investigator, and his staff will remain completely unwitting of U.S. government interest.
2 years later, they renew it. Same drugs, same secrecy clause, same university. The program didn't end. It got a new invoice number.
3. The project will be funded through the Society for the Investigation of Human Ecology, Inc. The cost of the program for a period of 1 year will be $19,092.
Look at the contact rule that ships with this renewal, not a suggestion, a firewall, written so no one at the agency can be traced back to the man running the sessions.
4. If it is necessary for agency personnel to contact Dr. Cameron or his staff, the matter will be discussed with the Office of Security and the desk involved for their evaluation and advice as to the proper procedures to be taken.
Signed off, funded, filed as routine. Now the fun one. Sub-Project 42. The internal name for what the Senate would later call, on the record, Midnight Climax. Safe houses, two-way mirrors, field trials. That's the euphemism. Here's the detail that undercuts the agency's own story. Someone inside the records system went on record, in writing, that these files should never have been burned, and named who gave the order. That renewal cycle actually starts earlier than the Senate transcript suggests. The first paperwork puts Sub-Project 42 on the books in the mid-50s, with a hard expiration date. Someone kept resetting the clock.
Date initiated, 1st July 1956. Date expires, 1st July 1962. Funds current year, $10,000. Purpose, to provide capability for covert and realistic field trials of certain research and development terms of interest to ISD and maintain facilities for such trials. Status, present trials scheduled 1/2 completed.
Half completed on a program meant to expire in 1962. It didn't. By 1963, the paperwork's changed category entirely, from vague research language to something the branch itself labeled offensive.
He records his belief that the files should not have been destroyed. He also notes that he checked with Jotas RMO, who agreed with him that the project files should have been retained. Is also reported to have determined that Dr. Gottlieb authorized destruction of the files.
2 officers on record agreeing the files should have survived. It didn't matter. The boxes went anyway.
1. Sub-Project 42 is to be continued for the same purposes as when originally established, to support covert and realistic field trials of certain research and development items of interest to TSD, and to maintain the physical facilities required for these trials.
Whatever word sits behind that redaction, it authorized a safe house. The Senate got specific about what that safe house looked like, decades later. What you're about to hear stayed classified for 40 years. Listen.
Two-way mirrors were used, placed in the bedroom. Rather elaborate decorations were added, as I understand at least to the one in San Francisco, in the bedroom, which are French can-can dancers, floral pictures, drapery, including installation of bedroom mirrors, 3 framed Toulouse-Lautrec posters with black silk mats, and a number of other red bedroom curtains and recording equipment.
Longevity's the other thing the Senate transcript doesn't fully capture. Sub-Project 42 didn't run for a year and quietly close. Internal paperwork shows it renewed itself for the better part of a decade, still calling field trials by their sanitized name.
In the past year, a number of covert and realistic field trials have been successfully carried out. The results of these experiments have provided factual data essential to establishing protocols for a number of contemplated operations. A continuation of covert and realistic field trials are necessitated by the production of new materials in TSD programs, particularly in areas requiring detailed knowledge of the effectiveness and efficiency of delivery systems.
Delivery systems, not drinks at a party. Delivery systems, like a weapon. $10,000 a year, renewed on a form, to keep testing how effectively a substance could be gotten into a human body without their knowledge. That's the line item hiding behind the can-can dancers. A CIA safehouse, decorated like a Parisian brothel, wired for sound. That's not a metaphor, that's a Senate hearing transcript. Now, the part everyone remembers wrong. It's not that MKUltra ended, it's that someone tried to make it disappear. One phone call, one order, and decades of paper went into an incinerator. The fire wasn't limited to MKUltra's own branch files. The same review found 3 more boxes gone, from a different program entirely, tangled up in biological and chemical weapons work.
The shelf list attached to Record Center job number 68256 describes 3 boxes of files that were also destroyed in January 1973. These files were probably related to the drug program, but the projects with which they deal have not all been identified by OTS. Box 3 of this lot contained files related to projects. They involved environmental sampling for BW and CW manufacturing activity.
Gottlieb's drawer wasn't the only casualty. The review team went looking for a sister program, MK Naomi, run jointly with the Army out of Fort Detrick. They found almost nothing, and the explanation is its own small confession.
In his discussions with the Army, Dr. Stevens learned that the Army had no records on MK Naomi or on the Special Operations Division, Fort Detrick. He surmises these records were destroyed when the BUCH materials were destroyed at the President's order.
2 agencies, 2 separate destructions, 1 overlapping story. And the same review admits Gottlieb's safe drawer might have taken MK Naomi's last paper trail down with it, meaning we may never know how much of that program even existed on paper to begin with. BW and CW, biological and chemical weapons. Nobody at OTS could say for certain, in writing, what those 3 boxes actually contained. They were reconstructing a burned program from memory and finance slips.
The MKUltra files were destroyed on the instructions of Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, then Chief of TSD, on 31st January 1973. Both branch files and records retrieved from archives were destroyed.
One officer objected in writing on the record before he was overruled. Not everything went in the fire. Some material got a second look, years later, after the scandal broke, when investigators started pulling boxes back out of storage to see what OTS had actually kept.
OTS RPO reviewed the material contained in 10 boxes recalled from Record Center by OTS because of their possible association with the drug program. These boxes contained a considerable amount of material dealing with animal screening tests involving various drugs, but they contain no material dealing with tests involving humans or identified as connected with Project MKUltra.
Animal tests survived. Human tests didn't. Whether that's a filing accident or a decision, the memo doesn't say. And 32 years later, nobody's found the person who could tell us.
Over my stated objections, the MKUltra files were destroyed by order of the DCI, Mr. Helms, shortly before his departure from office.
The Senate said it plainer than any memo dared to. On the record, under oath, in front of cameras.
The records of all these activities were destroyed in January 1973 at the instruction of the CIA Director Richard Helms. In spite of persistent inquiries by both the Health Subcommittee and the Intelligence Committee, no additional records or information were forthcoming.
But burning the branch files wasn't enough. Gottlieb had his own personal safe drawer destroyed too, 4 months later, by a secretary who'd worked for him 6 weeks.
Approximately 1 safe drawer full of the personal files of Dr. Sidney Gottlieb was destroyed on Dr. Gottlieb's orders in June 1973, shortly before his retirement. The files were destroyed by, at the time, had been Dr. Gottlieb's secretary for only 6 weeks.
We asked earlier about the sentence nobody in the agency could explain. Here it is, the Inspector General, 1975, describing a box of MKUltra material that simply vanished.
There is no record of destruction of this material, but a careful search has failed to turn it up. The box containing this material was recalled from archives by OTS on 8 January 1975 and returned to archives sometime thereafter, probably within 30 days.
Recalled, returned, then gone. Nobody wrote down where it went, and 32 years of investigation hasn't found it.
The fact remains, however, that the material is missing with no satisfactory explanation.
So what's actually left after the fire and the missing box? Financial records, the invoices we opened with tonight. Money doesn't burn as clean as paper. The church committee proved that.
Financial disbursement records for the period of 1960 to 1964 for 66 of these 149 sub-projects had been recovered by the Office of Finance at CIA and were made available to the church committee investigators.
149 sub-projects, 66 with surviving financial paper. That's the entire foundation of what we know about MKUltra. Not confessions, not memory. Cashier's checks that a records clerk forgot to shred. Every file we read tonight is linked below. Don't take our word for it. Read them yourself. And if you want the next file on your desk, subscribe. New files every Tuesday and Friday.